All right, let's be real for a second. Strength isn't just about lifting heavy stuff or keeping it all together 24/7. Real strength is messy, it's raw, and sometimes it's as simple as getting out of bed when you'd rather hide under the covers. Today, I'm breaking down signs you're way stronger than you give yourself credit for. Some will make you laugh, some might hit a nerve, but one thing's for sure. By the end of this video, you'll see yourself in a whole new light. Let's do this. On 1, you've learned to let go of the past. Let's not sugarcoat it. Letting go of the past is a Herculean task. It's like trying to walk away from a fire you've been staring at for years, hypnotized by the glow, even if it's burning you. The truth is, the past feels safe, even when it's painful. It's like an old, tattered blanket that smells a little weird, but still feels familiar. Letting go feels like stepping out into the cold without a safety net, and no one likes being vulnerable like that. Here's where it gets controversial. Some people wear their pain like a badge of honor. They don't want to let go. I'm talking about those folks who can turn any conversation into a therapy session about something that happened a decade ago. Yeah, I'm fine, but did I tell you about the time Karen stole my idea at work in 2013? I mean, I'm over it, but still. News flash. If you're still bringing it up, you're not over it. And that's okay. But here's the thing. Carrying those old wounds isn't strength. It's fear, disguised as justification. Let me be brutally honest with you. I was that person. There was a relationship in my life, a friendship actually, that ended in complete disaster. It wasn't just ghosting. It was a full-on mutual destruction fallout. For years I replayed it like a bad movie. I dissected every argument, every misunderstanding, every word I wished I hadn't said. And here's the kicker. They weren't thinking about me at all. Not one bit. While I was busy tormenting myself, they had moved on with their life. Then came my aha moment. One day, while scrolling through my phone, I stumbled on an old picture of us. For a second, I felt the familiar sting of what went wrong. But then I asked myself something different. What am I getting out of holding on to this? And the answer was absolutely nothing. It wasn't teaching me anything. It wasn't helping me grow. It was just taking up space in my head, rent-free. So I let it go. Was it instant? Number? Was it easy? Also number. But little by little I stopped replaying the story. I stopped stalking their social media. I stopped bringing them up in conversations. And you know what? It felt amazing, like I'd been carrying a backpack full of rocks, and I finally dropped it on the side of the road. Here's the deeper truth. Letting go isn't about forgetting or pretending it didn't happen. It's about making the conscious decision not to let it control you anymore. It's saying, yeah, that sucked, but it doesn't define me. It's not about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming your future. And here's the funny part. When you finally let go, you realize just how much energy you wasted clinging to it. I could have learned a new skill, started a business, or at least perfected my pancake recipe in the time I spent stewing over that broken friendship. Letting go isn't just liberating, it's efficient. So let me leave you with this. Letting go doesn't mean you're weak, or that you're saying what happened was okay. It means you're choosing peace over pain. Strength isn't about holding on to every scar like a trophy. It's about knowing when to let the scar fade. If you're still holding on to something, ask yourself, why? Is it serving you? Is it helping you grow? If the answer is no, it's time to drop that emotional backpack. Trust me, the road ahead is a lot easier to walk when you're not dragging the weight of yesterday behind you. 2. You embrace change instead of resisting it. Let's talk about change, the thing we all say we want, but secretly hope never actually shows up. Change is scary, uncomfortable, and let's be honest, downright inconvenient. It's like that unexpected guest who arrives with a suitcase full of chaos, when you were hoping for a quiet night in. But here's the kicker. If you're someone who embraces change, you've unlocked a kind of strength that most people spend their whole lives running from. Here's where it gets controversial. Not everyone wants to grow. Some people would rather sit in their misery than risk the discomfort of transformation. They'll tell you, "This is just who I am," as if it's a badge of honor. But let me say something that might sting. Staying the same isn't strength. It's fear wearing a mask of stubbornness. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. It happens when you're willing to leave behind what you know and dive headfirst into the unknown. I learned this the hard way. A few years ago, I was in a job that looked perfect on paper, but felt like slow suffocation in real life. I hated it. The hours were brutal, the work was uninspiring, and the office politics. Let's just say Survivor had nothing on it. But I stayed. Why? Because leaving felt terrifying. What if the next job is worse? What if I can't find anything else? What if I fail? So I resisted for years, and during that time I convinced myself that I was being practical. Sticking it out is the mature thing to do, I'd tell myself, as if enduring unhappiness was some kind of moral high ground. But the truth was, I was scared. Scared of the unknown. Scared of change. Then, one day, I hit my breaking point. A particularly soul-crushing meeting made me realize I couldn't do it anymore. So I quit. No plan, no safety net. Just me and a lot of uncertainty. And let me tell you, the first few months were terrifying. But then something incredible happened. I started to grow. I discovered passions I didn't even know I had, learned skills I'd never imagined needing, and found opportunities that never would have come my way if I hadn't taken that leap. Looking back, the job I clung to for so long was a cage, and leaving it was the first time I realized I had the strength to fly. Here's the deep truth about embracing change. It's not about being fearless. It's about being scared, but doing it anyway. It's about trusting that the discomfort of growth is worth the reward of becoming a better version of yourself. It's about realizing that the only constant in life is change, and fighting it is like trying to hold back the tide with a bucket. It's pointless and exhausting. Now let me make this jovial for a second. You ever try to resist change and end up looking ridiculous? Like when your favorite coffee shop replaces your go-to drink with some weird seasonal special and you act like the universe is personally attacking you. Yeah, I've been there. But here's the thing. You try the new drink, and 9 times out of 10 it's not bad. Sometimes it's even better. So here's my challenge to you. Think about something you're resisting right now. Maybe it's a career shift, a relationship ending, or even something small like switching to a healthier routine. Ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen if I embrace it? And what's the best that could happen? The strongest people aren't the ones who cling to the past or fight against the inevitable. They're the ones who adapt, evolve, and find the courage to say, bring it on. Because the secret about change, it doesn't just break you, it remakes you. And on the other side, you might just find a version of yourself you didn't even know was possible. 3. You take responsibility for your life. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Taking responsibility for your life isn't glamorous. It's not the stuff motivational quotes on Instagram are made of. It's messy, uncomfortable, and forces you to admit some harsh truths about yourself. But here's the kicker. Taking responsibility is one of the strongest, most liberating things you can do. Why? Because it puts you in the driver's seat of your life. No excuses, no blaming others, just you and your choices. Here's the controversial part. Not everyone wants to take responsibility. Some people prefer the blame game. My parents never supported me. My boss doesn't recognize my talent. The economy is just terrible right now. Sound familiar? Blame feels good. It's like handing the wheel to someone else so you can sit back and complain about the bumpy ride. But let me be blunt, if you're constantly blaming others for where you are in life, you're not steering. You're a passenger. I used to be that passenger. Years ago, I went through a phase where I blamed everything on my circumstances. I wasn't where I wanted to be in life, and instead of looking inward, I pointed fingers outward. My job was holding me back. The city I lived in was too small, and honestly, the weather probably got a piece of my wrath too. But one day, after a particularly epic pity party, I realized something. Blaming everyone else wasn't changing anything. So I decided to take responsibility. And let me tell you, that first step, brutal. I had to face the uncomfortable truth that I wasn't stuck because of anyone else. I was stuck because I wasn't taking action. I was afraid of failure, so I played it safe and blamed the world for my lack of progress. Once I owned that, everything started to shift. I started taking small steps toward the life I wanted, pursuing new opportunities, learning new skills, and even owning up to my mistakes. And guess what? It wasn't perfect. I failed a lot. But I also grew in ways I never imagined. Here's the deep part. Taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything that's gone wrong. Life throws curveballs. Things happen that are beyond your control. But you can control how you respond. Responsibility is about saying, I might not have chosen this situation, but I do choose what I do next. That's power. That's freedom. Now, let's lighten this up. You ever have a moment where you try to dodge responsibility and end up making things worse? Like when you leave the dishes in the sink, hoping someone else will do them, and then you come back to Mount Dismore with dried spaghetti sauce that could survive a nuclear blast. Yeah, me too. Avoiding responsibility often makes things messier. Here's my honest takeaway. Owning your life isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about saying, this is my life, and I'm not going to waste it waiting for someone else to fix it. It's scary, but it's also empowering as hell. So if you're stuck right now, ask yourself, what am I waiting for? The perfect moment. Someone to rescue me. The truth is, no one's coming. You're the hero of your own story. The sooner you grab the pen and start writing, the sooner you'll realize just how strong you are. And hey, if you mess up a chapter or two, that's fine. The best stories always have a few plot twists. 4. You keep going on hard days. Let's be honest, the idea of keeping going on hard days gets romanticized way too much. Social media loves to paint it as waking up, powering through with a cup of coffee, and smashing your goals while dramatic music plays in the background. But in real life, sometimes keeping going looks like rolling out of bed at noon, eating cereal in your pajamas, and dragging yourself through the day one sluggish step at a time. And you know what? That's still strength. Here's where it gets controversial. Not every day has to be a victory lap. The hustle culture narrative that you have to be productive even on your worst days, it's garbage. Sometimes just surviving the day is enough. Pushing yourself to the brink in the name of grind culture doesn't make you strong, it makes you burnt out. Real strength isn't about sprinting when you're exhausted. It's about putting one foot in front of the other, even if those steps feel like they're going nowhere. I'll never forget one of my hardest days. It was a mix of everything going wrong. A massive project at work collapsed. A personal relationship fell apart. And to top it all off, my car broke down on the way home. I remember sitting in the car on the side of the road, crying into a fast food napkin, feeling like life had just handed me a losing lottery ticket. Everything in me wanted to quit, to call off work, cancel plans, and just disappear for a while. But instead, I did something that didn't feel like strength at the time. I went home, ordered pizza, and gave myself permission to feel miserable for a little while. The next day, I woke up still feeling heavy, but I showed up. I didn't conquer the world. I didn't suddenly feel amazing, but I kept going. I did the small things I could manage, and slowly things started to get better. Here's the deeper message. Strength isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's not about ignoring your feelings or forcing positivity when the world feels like it's falling apart. Real strength is about persistence. It's about enduring, even when you feel like giving up. It's about showing up for yourself, even if all you can manage is the bare minimum. And let me make this jovial for a second. You ever have one of those days where you're so over everything that you consider just packing up and moving to a remote cabin in the woods? Yeah, me too. But then you remember you wouldn't survive 5 minutes without Wi-Fi, and suddenly you're back to dealing with your problems like the rest of us. Keeping going doesn't mean you have to slay the day. Some days the win is just getting through it. And here's the thing. When you keep going even on the hard days, you're building resilience. You're proving to yourself that no matter what life throws at you, you can handle it. So if you're in the middle of a hard day right now, let me tell you this. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just take it one step at a time. Because the simple act of moving forward, no matter how small the steps, is proof that you're stronger than you think. And when you look back on those hard days, you'll realize they didn't break you, they built you. 5. You've bounced back from mistakes. Let's face it, bouncing back from mistakes isn't the glamorous phoenix rising from the ashes moment everyone pretends it is. It's awkward, messy, and sometimes downright humiliating. You don't bounce back gracefully. You stumble, trip over your own feet, and occasionally faceplant before you find your balance again. And you know what? That's what makes it so real. Here's the controversial truth. Not everyone bounces back. Some people cling to their mistakes like they're a personality trait. They replay them over and over, using them as proof that they're unworthy or incapable. They'll say things like, "I'm just bad at relationships," or "I always mess things up," as if their mistakes define their entire existence. But here's the thing. Your mistakes are chapters in your story, not the whole book. And bouncing back isn't about pretending they didn't happen. It's about refusing to let them keep you down. I'll give you a personal example. A few years ago, I made a massive career blunder. I took on a project I wasn't ready for, overpromised, and, surprise, surprise, underdelivered. When the whole thing fell apart, I felt like I had just stamped failure on my forehead for the world to see. The self-doubt, brutal. I spent weeks obsessing over what I could have done differently, replaying the disaster in my head like a cringe-worthy highlight reel. But then I asked myself a hard question. What now? Was I going to let one mistake define me, or was I going to use it as a learning moment? So I swallowed my pride, owned up to the failure, and reached out to a mentor. They didn't sugarcoat it. They told me where I went wrong, but they also reminded me that mistakes are part of growth. From that point on, I started approaching mistakes differently. Instead of letting them crush me, I used them as stepping stones. That failed project, it taught me about boundaries, communication, and not biting off more than I could chew. It also gave me the grit to take on even bigger challenges down the road. And this time, I nailed them. Here's the deeper message. Mistakes don't ruin you. Your response to them does. Bouncing back isn't about erasing the mistake. It's about learning from it and moving forward with more wisdom than you had before. Strength doesn't come from never messing up. It comes from looking at your mess and saying, "All right, how do I clean this up and do better next time? Now, let's lighten this up." You ever have one of those oops moments that's so bad it's almost funny, like sending an email to the wrong person or tripping in public and trying to play it off like it was intentional? Mistakes like these are universal. They remind us that no one's perfect, no matter how polished they seem on the outside. So here's the takeaway. If you've bounced back from a mistake, no matter how big or small, that's strength. You didn't let it define you. You didn't let it keep you down. And the best part, every mistake you bounce back from adds another layer to your resilience. If you're sitting there replaying your own failures, let me remind you, your mistakes are just moments, not monuments. You don't have to carry them forever. Learn the lesson, laugh if you can, and then let them go. Because the ability to bounce back isn't just a skill. It's proof that you're stronger, wiser, and braver than you realize. 6. You're okay with being misunderstood. Let's be real. Being misunderstood sucks. It feels like someone's taken the essence of who you are, flipped it upside down, and added their own incorrect subtitles. But here's the kicker. If you're okay with being misunderstood, that's a sign of incredible strength. Why? Because it means you've stopped tying your worth to other people's opinions. You know who you are, and you don't need a standing ovation to validate it. Here's the controversial part. Most people are obsessed with being understood. They'll bend, twist, and reshape themselves just to fit other people's expectations. It's the people-pleasing Olympics, where everyone's competing for gold in being liked. But here's the hard truth. If you're constantly trying to make everyone understand and approve of you, you'll lose yourself in the process. And, spoiler alert, not everyone's opinion is worth that much effort. I learned this the hard way in my early 20s. I was that person. I wanted everyone to like me, co-workers, friends, even strangers who cut me off in traffic. I'd over-explain myself, justify every decision, and apologize for things that didn't even need apologizing for. Then, one day, someone accused me of being too ambitious at work. Me? Ambitious? It was meant as a dig, but instead of brushing it off, I spiraled. I started second-guessing myself. Am I too much? Should I tone it down? And then it hit me. Why was I giving so much energy to someone who didn't even know the full story of who I was? I realized that trying to make everyone understand me was like trying to win a game where the rules kept changing. So I stopped. I didn't stop caring altogether, but I stopped needing their approval. And you know what? The world didn't end. Here's the deeper truth. Being okay with being misunderstood isn't about being rude or dismissive. It's about recognizing that your truth doesn't have to align with everyone else's narrative. You're not for everyone, and that's okay. Strength is knowing your value even when others don't see it. Now, let's add a jovial twist. Ever had someone misunderstand you in the most ridiculous way possible? Like, you say, "I prefer cats," and suddenly you're branded as a cat-obsessed recluse who hates dogs and joy. It's hilarious in hindsight how people can warp the simplest things. But that's just it. People will interpret you based on their lens, not your reality. And that's not your problem. So here's my advice. The next time someone gets you wrong, resist the urge to over-explain your whole life, trying to set the record straight. Or you can focus on living authentically. One of those leads to growth. The other leads to exhaustion. If you're okay with being misunderstood, that's a superpower. It means you've stopped outsourcing your self-worth to other people's limited perspectives. You've realized that not everyone will get you, and that's not a failure. It's just life. So keep being your unique, complex self. The right people will see you for who you are. And the rest? Well, let them think what they want. You've got better things to do. All right, so there you have it. Signs that you're far stronger than you probably give yourself credit for. Here's the thing. Strength doesn't look the same for everyone, and it doesn't always feel like strength in the moment. Sometimes it's loud and bold, like taking a big leap of faith. Other times it's quiet and unseen, like just getting out of bed on a day when the weight of the world feels unbearable. But no matter what it looks like for you, it's real, and it matters. Now let's address something important. The world will often try to define strength for you, telling you that it's about perfection, hustle, or never showing weakness. But the truth is, Real strength isn't about any of that. Real strength is about authenticity. It's about owning your flaws, learning from your mistakes, and being brave enough to keep going, even when life feels impossible. It's about being human in all its messy, complicated glory. Here's the deep message I want you to take away. You're enough. Whether you're smashing your goals or just surviving, whether you're being cheered on or misunderstood, your strength is in the fact that you're still here, still trying, still learning, still showing up. And that's not just enough, it's extraordinary. But let's not pretend this journey is easy. There will be setbacks. There will be days when you question everything, when you feel like giving up, when you wonder if you're even moving forward at all. And on those days, I want you to remember something. Strength isn't about never falling. It's about rising every single time you do, even if it's messy, even if it's slow, even if you don't feel strong while you're doing it.